This episode will be completely taken out of context. Welcome to the Fact Check This podcast.
All right, Fact Check This podcast, and I am back. Had a nice little vacation last week. Got to go home, see the family, spend some time with my nephew and my kids and my parents and my grandma, and go to my parents' church for their barbecue supper and do all the fun stuff. And now we are back. And tomorrow I go back to work. So yay for that. But 2 weeks off, not too shabby. Oh, let's see. Today we will be talking about male myths, brought to you by the people who cannot define a man or a woman or anything else for that matter. I found two different articles. One of them is on the myth of the alpha male, and the other is the myth of the male breadwinner. So we're going to start with the myth of the alpha male and go through the article and kind of talk about it. And also we'll talk about the author and some of the other stuff that this dude has written. We'll get to it. We'll get to this. But let's start with the article and the myth itself, right? The myth of the male alpha, of the alpha male. The myth of the male alpha, a man who does not exist. The birth of a myth. The term alpha male was born in 1947 in the ethological field from the observations of the behavior of groups of wolves in captivity. In particular, it referred to the male in these groups, the male who in these groups held the highest position in the social hierarchy. The term male alpha was then popular with Franz de Waal, a famous biologist and primacy, who used it in his first writings regarding the social behavior of chimpanzees. The world's deepest tunnel is soon to be completed, and it will save divers. I hate the way the articles are done on this particular website. They just throw the ads in with no, you can't tell that it's an ad. Stupid shit. Although the world's deepest tunnel could be an interesting thing. We might talk about that later. Do a daily on that. Anyway, back to Franz de Waal and the chimpanzees. He referred to the individual, not to the male alpha, as that individual of the group that had greater access to resources among the chimpanzees and came respected as a leader of the group. The true man. Already during the 80s and 90s, the term male alpha began to be associated with characteristics such as physical strength, power, and aggression. The image returned by the media is that of a feared and respected man who uses intimidation and shrewdness to acquire favors, resources, and success. The reality figure, however, highlights a very different picture. Firstly, as de Waal himself specified in a recent interview, the alpha male is the highest male individual in the group's social hierarchy. This has little to do with the degree of individual aggression. It is a mistake to consider exclusively the physical power in determining if an individual is an alpha individual. In various animal species, the alpha individual is not necessarily male. Often this role is covered with female individuals. In addition, it is necessary to underline that on the physical plane, in the human species, the differences between males and females are of modest entity if compared to the sexual dwelling of other species. Therefore, the physical aspects are not a discriminating factor in determining the position of the social hierarchy. Okay. We're going to talk about the author for a moment, because the guy is Dr. Kyle Muller, and I have gone through and found 4 other articles by this dude, and every single one of them is this soft, squishy, puff piece bullshit. It's some straight up commie fucking, kumbaya retardation. I can also not find any indication. So every one of these articles lists this guy as Dr. Kyle Muller. I can't find any indication that this guy is actually a doctor. He is a research analyst at a juvenile detention center. But somehow he gets to write these pieces. And they're all squishy puff pieces about basically everyone should just be a soft pussy, and then life would be better. This idea that the differences between males and females are of modest entity, that there's not that big of a difference between males and females. This is that, progressive bullshit that has been seeping into society, that there's no big difference between males and females, so it's okay for men to compete in women's sports and stuff like that. And then you watch men compete in women's sports and absolutely destroy women. There is a huge biological difference. And physical power has never been the primary determining factor for an alpha male. Like, where does this idea even come from? This is this squishy bullshit of he's trying to paint the image of an alpha as this certain thing that progressivism and liberalism wants you to think it is bad. But a true alpha is not just the biggest and strongest. It's the one that commands respect, that commands authority, that actually the one that actually leads. It's not about just physical power. It never was exclusively about physical power. And that's where this guy makes the mistake. Physical aspects are not a discriminating factor in determining the position in the social hierarchy. They are not the sole discriminating factor. They do play a part. Being physically bigger and stronger definitely plays a part. And you see that throughout the animal kingdom. Even in the animal species where they tend to be more matriarchal, and the lioness, protects the babies and stuff. Like the lion, the alpha male, has a position and commands respect, even if it's more led by the others. That big, strong, powerful one has respect and has a position. To ignore that is just straight up completely ignoring nature itself. Democracy. Now we get to democracy of it. Once the myth of the force is dispelled as a key element to be alpha, there is an additional aspect to consider. An individual may strongly want to be alpha, but this position is neither hereditary nor due to law. It is the group that identifies, determines, and recognizes the leader's position to a person. The more the individual has pro-social skills and empathy skills, the more it will be recognized as a point of reference for the group. Compassion as a leadership factor. In nature, even where they exist, alpha males usually do not base their work on intimidation or coercion. On the contrary, show highly pro-social behaviors, protect the weak of the group, interrupt the quarrels and conflicts, have high levels of empathy and care of others. Compassion and cooperation seem to be key elements to obtain a social status higher as much as, if not more, than the use of aggression and intimidation. Yeah, no fucking shit. Tell me you've never been a part of any sports team or any team activity at all. It's not necessarily the biggest, strongest, fastest that commands a leadership position. It's the one that understands how to bring people together. And a lot of times that person also possesses some of those physical traits that make them stand out. If you're 6'5", 220 pounds and built really well, and also know how to talk and communicate with people, then you're probably going to elevate yourself a lot quicker than somebody who's 5'7", weighs 140 pounds soaking wet, and doesn't stand out in a crowd. Like that's just nature. People are drawn to a large, attractive target like that. The idea behind this whole article of the alpha male doesn't exist is complete retardation. It completely ignores actual nature. This guy spends an entire article trying to explain why, being, what's he say, aggressive and intimidating aren't what make an alpha male. No fucking shit. Like, have you ever actually interacted in society with groups where someone has to take a leadership position? The dude works in juvenile correction, or works with like juveniles in correctional facilities. Like, I would be willing to bet in those correctional facilities, you have a number of alpha males who take their position. Not necessarily because they're the biggest, strongest, most aggressive, and most intimidating, but because they know how to work people. This is not like news unless you're stupid. This whole article is to try to encourage males to be soft and squishy and fucking suck. You don't need to soften up. I am apparently, according to a lot of people, very intimidating. I don't intend to be. I don't mean to be. I don't try to be. But some people find me intimidating. I also command a great deal of respect from the people who work for me, from my kids, and not just because I'm intimidating, but also because I understand how to talk to people. Like, the idea that the alpha male doesn't exist, for one, is complete and utter bullshit. And that physical stature and aggression and intimidation don't play any part in it is just absolutely ignorant. Dominance and prestige. In fact, in our species, the achievement of the high social status and the advantages that derive from it can be obtained through two great ways: domination and prestige. The domain, on the other, is exercised through intimidation, threats, and coercion. It is characterized by aspects of arrogance, presumption, antisocial behaviors, and unstable relationships. So, being intimidating, according to this guy, means you are antisocial, arrogant, presumptive, and unstable. I've been around those people that have that air to them, that are intimidating. They're not arrogant. They're confident. They're not presumptive. They understand what you don't. They're definitely not antisocial or unstable. Usually they're incredibly social. That intimidation that is off-putting to soft beta males like Dr. Muller is because they know they are physically and probably mentally and definitely socially inferior to that alpha male that they're in the presence of. That's why they write pieces like this. It's not intimidation and threats and coercion. It's command of a room. And these little beta bitches like this dude, like I said, I've read 4 other articles by this guy, and it's all this squishy puff bullshit. Like, I mean, this dude is the definition of a fucking pussy. He will never lead anyone out of a room, much less into battle or into a job site or anything. Like, this dude is, everything that he writes is squish. And so it makes sense that he would be terrified of a physically dominant, intimidating person, which is what an alpha male can be. Even if they're not the biggest and strongest, it's the presence that makes them intimidating and larger than what they seem. On the contrary, prestigious individuals have lower levels of aggression and higher levels of genuine self-esteem, social acceptance, pleasantness, and mediation skills. The way of prestige is characterized by the mediation and cooperation capacity. Dominance allows to obtain status, but forces you to have to defend its position from opponents. This keeps threat levels, alarm, and anxiety high. The prestige, on the other hand, promotes social relations and guarantees a stable and lasting status within the group. Another myth to dispel, the male alpha, is more attractive. Already during the second half of the 90s, literature began to question themselves if the domain and aggression were truly attraction elements. Jensen Campbell and Kaligi in 1995 highlighted how dominant aspects did not influence no influence on the level of attractiveness of a man, if not when united at high levels of pleasant character. If anything, social media has taught us that is absolute bullshit. The level of attractiveness and the pleasantness of character have nothing to do with each other in a lot of situations. A few years later, in a study conducted by Berger and Cosby, it emerged how the dominance submission dimension was extremely limited in grasping the factors that made a man's eyes attractive. The results showed that the adjectives most associated with the attraction were safe, assertive, quiet, and sensitive. No woman indicated a demanding and aggressive man as attractive. Recently, Snyder and colleagues underlined how dominance in the strict sense would be attractive only in the context of conflicts between males in athletic competitions, while in other contexts, as in friendly or romantic relationships, it is not desirable. The research indicates how the most desirable man is not the alpha man. The ideal man, with all the limits that our similar labels entails, is an assertive man, self-confident, casual, and sensitive, has low level of aggression, and is not demanding or dominant. I believe the last several years of, again, social media interactions and seeing all the women complaining about these weak, soft chin, beta bitch boys that can't command any type of presence, that they're not dominant in any way. That is objectively not true. You want somebody that is assertive. You want somebody that is, to some extent, aggressive. Again, what this guy confuses and messes up here is the aggression and the dominance are not what make you an alpha male. It's the presence. It's the command. It's all of that together. Not just being aggressive and dominant. Not just being the physically biggest and strongest, but all of it combined is what creates the alpha male. And that's the point that this dude misses throughout the whole thing. In conclusion, the Macho Alpha label is a myth that is not supported by any serious scientific work. It has been denied even in the studies of wolves. Where? I need to find that study because he doesn't link to any of this shit. And therefore should fall into disuse. Compassion, empathy, assertiveness, and acquisition of skills are the ingredients that make a person more attractive. Ultimately, they are the same qualities that favor psychological well-being and a full life of meeting. Well, assertiveness and high level of skill. Yes, I'm going to share the wolf meme again. I'm going to bring that back. Assertiveness and dominance are very important. have been proven throughout much of the animal kingdom as well as the human kingdom to be very important things. Even the most mild, like very pleasant type of leaders have a certain air of domination and assertiveness that can't be denied. And when you look at modern society and you look at the males of this society, the ones who actually accomplish anything are the ones who are able to assert themselves and be aggressive. And they tend to be the ones that are the more attractive to everyone. Everyone follows that. Denying the alpha male is just like, it's the same thing that the left does with most of the things that they preach on. They ask you to deny the evidence that is right in front of your face that you can see every day in everything that you do. Which takes us to the second myth we're covering today, the myth of the male breadwinner. This one, I just thought this one was funny, and it's a little bit shorter. The myth of the male breadwinner. Women contribute most to society when they raise their children full time, while the main role of men is to protect and provide. And this is the way it's always been. At least, that's the impression given by current trends, from trad wives to alpha males, to even proclamations made by the members of the Trump administration themselves. A mention of childless cat ladies comes to mind. Just to be sexist and put it in sexist terms, women think of a man as a provider, Joe Rogan said on his wildly popular podcast in 2023. There's this like evolutionary aspect. In March 2025, parenting author Erica Commissar argued that mothers should stay at home for at least the first 3 years of their children's lives, commenting on the Diary of a CEO podcast that from an evolutionary perspective, this type of caregiving was standard. The problem? It's untrue. As the evolutionary anthropologist, that's got to be made up, right? Like, there's no way there's such a thing. Like, how do you get a degree in evolutionary anthropology? Like, this is some liberal arts retarded bullshit. The evolutionary anthropologist Sarah Hardy put it to me. Except for blips in history, men have never really been breadwinners supporting a woman at home. We've talked about this before. I think anyway. Even now, globally, the male breadwinner, female homemaker division of labor is unusual, writes evolutionary behavioral scientist Rebecca Sear. And they're all women. This is based on the names Sarah Hardy, Rebecca Sear. These are some basic white bitches. Like, evolutionary behavioral scientist is the most basic white bitch title that you could possibly have. Like, nobody fucking cares about that. There is no market for that. You are just doing this to write puff pieces like this. And the only reason that these people are allowed to exist is because the left pushes this kind of dumb bullshit. Evolutionary behavioral scientist Rebecca Sear. Childcare is not the exclusive preserve of women in most societies. And even more so, productive labor is not the exclusive preserve of men. No fucking shit. Oh my God. See, this is like the first article with the myth of the alpha male. The alpha male isn't just big and aggressive and strong and the strongest. You know, fucking shit. Childcare is not exclusively for women, and earning a living isn't, providing for the family isn't, and labor isn't exclusively for men. Yeah, no fucking shit. Nobody ever fucking said it was. Like, they create these black and white either or when life and the world is this gray in the middle area. And that's like, for people who deny, want everything to be non-binary, the left is very, very binary when it comes to a lot of things, and it's absolutely insane. That includes during our hunter-gatherer days, which account for some 95% of human evolutionary history. The idea of man the hunter, woman the caregiver, wildly popularized by male anthropologists in the 1960s, is, Hardy notes, a massively mistaken trope. We've actually gone through, I know I have, gone through the studies by these female evolutionary behavioral scientists and evolutionary anthropologists, where they debunked the idea of the male hunter, and it's all bullshit. Like, all of their science is complete bullshit. They don't bring any actual evidence to the table with that in any way. And most of very recent human history, like, the parts that are recorded of when we've lived here in the United States, indicate that even if that wasn't the case 2 million years ago, it was definitely the case within the last 200 years. So shut the fuck up, you idiots. Like, they create these ideas of what history was while ignoring all of the proof of what history was, just to say that it was something other than what it is for their progressive ideas and for their own to advance their own purposes and goals. But there's no actual science behind any of the shit that they say. They just talk this fucking shit. There's growing evidence that in many hunter-gatherer cultures, women hunted. Yeah, no shit. I bet you women hunted at some point. That wasn't the common, but it happened. How common this was is debated. It's not all that debated. It's pretty uncommon. But yes, it happened. Just like, there are men who stay home and take care of the kids sometimes. It happens. I like this part. How common this was is debated, but it may not matter, because either way, women were key in provisioning food for their community. It still doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We don't need to talk about how common it actually was. That doesn't matter. The fact is, women helped providing food. No fucking shit. It only happens 6% of the time, but it doesn't matter that 94% of the time it was taken care of by men because women contributed. Yeah, nobody fucking cares. In fact, in several foraging societies in sub-Saharan Africa, often considered the closest likeness to our shared evolutionary past. What the? Sub-Saharan Africa is considered the closest likeness to our shared evolutionary past? Right the fuck off with that fucking shit. Women's average contribution to their community's calorie intake ranged between 60 and 80%. Sub-Saharan Africa had a problem with the males not hanging around and taking care of stuff. Oh, God. Color me fucking shocked, right? Sorry. These societies could survive without the sporadic acquisition of meat, anthropologists note. But they could not survive without the tubers and other plants reliably and consistently dug up or picked by women. Okay. It's true that women have historically combined caregiving and work duties, especially in infancy. Think foraging with a baby on the back. But they also had a lot of help. Take Central Africa's Efe Society and the Ituri Rainforest and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. At 18 weeks old, Efe infants already spend 60% of their time being cared for by someone other than their mother. They are passed from one caregiver to the next more than 8 times per hour. While the Efe are on the extreme end, allo parents, non-biological parents, are on hand across foraging societies, so a mother can focus on acquiring food, water, or firewood. As Hardy argues, 16 years ago in her book, Mothers and Others, communal care may have been the very foundation of how modern humans came to be. And it didn't just mean mothers and fathers had help caring for their children. It also meant they had help provisioning them. In other words, the idea that any family unit had to rely entirely on a mother and father in isolation for breadwinning, never mind the father alone, is a myth. Yeah, no fucking shit. Is any of this surprising to anybody? Yeah, communities existed. Family units, bigger than just the mother and father and a couple children, existed. That's why you had tribes and clans. These people existed and worked together in community. Yeah. No fucking shit. Oh my God. Like, is the left finally discovering, like, civilization for the first time? Like, this is... It's insane. Like, the sheer stupidity of the shit that they write. What changed? First, the move to farming. As nomadic societies settled and began to grow their own food, the average number of children per mother rose sharply, even doubling, tethering women more to caretaking responsibilities. Division of labor sharpened, with women's work increasingly taking place within the home. Then came Christianity, with its biblical injunctions that man must provide for their families or be worse than an infidel. And now we get to the Christianity bashing, which is completely inaccurate and wrong, and again, more fucking retardation. Thank you for proving yourselves to just be stupid. Still, more women labored in farming communities than you might think. In medieval Europe, peasant women worked alongside men doing almost exactly the same jobs in the fields. Medieval history Eleanor Janega noted previously. In cities, they worked as servants, nannies, craftspeople, or bookkeepers for the family business. Ah, yes, the serf class all had to work. Imagine that. Jesus Christ. Even as the Industrial Revolution turned society upside down, women continued to work outside of the home. And it goes without saying, then as now, they worked hard inside the home too, whether by taking on paid work like sewing or taking lodgers or handling unpaid domestic duties. At factories, they were seen as such attractive employees, often because owners could pay them lower wages than men. That the U.S. Supreme Court ruled to limit women's work hours. Female employment also was kept down through policies like marriage bars, which banned married women from paid work. Even so, women often sought paid work outside of the home. By 1900, the census reported that 1 in 5 U.S. workers were women. Yet actual numbers were likely far higher, given that paid work was narrowly defined to be work that, among other criteria, someone chiefly depended for support, unlikely for many married women. Not to mention that the stigma against working women meant that few families were likely to report this work accurately to the census takers. Meanwhile, women educated themselves in greater numbers. By 1930, around 4 in 10 students graduating with bachelor's or master's degrees were female. So while World War II's Rosie the Riveter might have been new, Rosie the Worker, even Rosie the Provider, was not. When the war ended, considerable cultural, economic, and even legal efforts were put into convincing women that they should stay at home. Yet women still worked, even through the happy housewife decade of the 1950s. Female labor participation continued to rise. Today, 2/3 of U.S. mothers work outside the home in almost equal measures across party lines. We developed this expectation of man as breadwinner very recently in our evolution, and it's bad for everyone, says Melissa Hogbone, author of the forthcoming book Breadwinners. It's terrible for female equality, but it's bad for men too. The pressure for fathers to work long hours is harmful for their relationships, their children, and their marriages, and for their mental health. The expectation of man as breadwinner very recently in our evolution. Okay, perhaps. But, again, we can go back to, like, Old Testament, biblical days. Like, the man was that. And that's, we're talking 2,000 years ago. You can go back and look at Roman, Greek, like early history. That was the man's role. Yes, women worked. Yes, women did things other than just pop out kids and then take care of them. No fucking shit. But the man was the primary one that was doing this stuff. By foreclosing on the possibility that men can be equal, never mind primary caregivers, our man the provider trope has also done fathers a disservice. Much has been made of recent findings that mothers' brains change in pregnancy, but as Hardy explores in her latest book, Father Time, men's brains and hormones also change. And the more involved a father is, the more pronounced these changes are. That we aren't tapping into this caregiver potential of men is hurting them. It's no accident that a lot of men feel unneeded, cast aside, that 3 out of 5 deaths of despair from drug addiction and suicide are men. There's a vast untapped potential for caring in men, and by expressing it, they may find new sources of meaning. Gosh, I wonder where that comes from. The men feeling unneeded and cast aside. It seems like society over the last 20 years has done a whole lot to try to tell us that we're fucking useless, that we don't have any purpose, that we're terrible, that we're all a bunch of misogynists, and we're all a bunch of bigots, and that we are the problem with everything in the world. Gosh, I wonder where this feeling of unneededness and uselessness and being cast aside has come from. When anytime something comes up, a mother is always given the children. Almost always. Even if the mother is a completely useless, worthless, miserable piece of shit, and the father is a good dude with a job and a house and can provide for the kids, a court will give the kids to the mother. I wonder why fathers have been pushed to feel like they're not needed, like they're useless. It's a societal push that has been made by the same people writing this fucking article. Yes, there's a vast untapped potential for caring in men. The left does not allow us to tap into that potential. We are relegated to just go to work. And so that's what we do. To be clear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a mother raising children full-time. For many families, it can be ideal. Implying it should be standard for all because it is the way it's always was, however, is wrong. Literally, and because it holds everyone back from their full potential, both women and men. Nobody is implying that the man going to work and the woman staying home full-time should be the standard for everyone. Even the trad wife, trad life types that really push that, understand and acknowledge that it's not right for everybody. The binary thought process of the people that write these fucking articles is absolutely insane. I enjoy reading this stuff because it points out just how out of touch with reality they are. And it shows just how much they think one thing or the other and have no room in their mind for the gray areas that are how life actually works, which tells me that they are completely devoid or divorced from reality and do not understand the world. For all that they write about it, for all that they study, for all of their degrees, they are complete and total retards. And if this was the morning show, I would play the clip, but I don't have that queued up on this thing because this is not the morning show. Speaking of, do a morning show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sometimes, most of the time, a lot of times, whenever we have, everybody's available or we have enough people available to do it. Anyway, that's at 7:30 a.m. Central Time on YouTube, sometimes Facebook and Rumble. You can find us on YouTube by searching for Vasectomy Clubhouse, and that'll take you right to us. We are the morning after. And then when I close the show and call somebody retarded, I play an outro clip. I don't have that queued up for this. I'll be back next week. Next week, I'm going to be talking about... next week, I'm going to be talking about being racist. So it's going to be a fun article. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully you are too. I will see you then. Have a good rest of your day. And later.